We're counting down 10 practical skills that Black grandparents handed down, not just for tradition, but to save real money in everyday life. From creative ways to make a dollar stretch, to powerful financial habits and homegrown self-reliance, each item on this list proves how old school wisdom can outsmart modern costs. Which skill delivers the biggest savings? Let's begin with number 10. In neighborhoods where cash was tight and trust ran deep, Black grandparents relied on the oldest economy in the world, bartering. A neighbor fixed your fence, you baked her a sweet potato pie. Someone's son mowed 3 lawns in exchange for a winter coat handed down from another family. These exchanges didn't just patch holes or fill bellies, they kept hundreds of dollars in the community every year. Today, skill swap events echo this tradition, with families trading tutoring for car repairs or garden harvests for childcare. Studies show that swapping services instead of paying out of pocket can replace at least $500 in annual expenses, especially for households that lean on mutual aid. But money management wasn't just about saving, it was about giving too. In many Black families, tithing, setting aside 10% of every dollar earned for church or community, came before any spending. This practice, rooted in biblical teaching, wasn't reserved for the wealthy. Even when paychecks were small and bills loomed, the first envelope filled was marked for giving. The discipline of tithing taught order and priorities, generosity before indulgence, faith before fear. For generations, this habit built a sense of security and collective strength. The church, in turn, became a safety net, helping with groceries, rent, or a doctor's visit when times got hard. Whether through bartering skills or tithing first, these habits form the backbone of a resilient community, showing that wealth isn't only measured in dollars, but in how people show up for each other. Turning one pot into 3 meals wasn't just a clever trick, it was a necessity. Grandparents stretched every dollar by stretching every dinner. A single chicken might appear first as Sunday roast, then as chicken and dumplings, and finally as broth with rice and vegetables. Leftover beans became the base for a hearty soup, and day-old cornbread found new life crumbled into greens. This kind of kitchen economy added up, saving families close to $600 a year compared to today's takeout habits. The phrase "stretch the pot" carried real meaning. It meant nobody went hungry and nothing went to waste. Alongside thrift at the table, home remedies filled the gap when doctor visits cost too much or clinics turned families away. Ginger tea for a queasy stomach, peppermint for a headache, chamomile to calm a restless child. These gentle fixes were passed down with care. Studies today confirm that many of these herbal teas are safe for mild symptoms, and a few cups of ginger tea can sometimes save a trip to the clinic. With the average copay now around $28, even avoiding 4 unnecessary visits a year can keep over $100 in your pocket. But elders always warned, if a fever runs high or pain won't quit, it's time to see a doctor. Home remedies meant comfort, not a cure-all. The wisdom was knowing the difference and passing that knowledge to the next generation. Saturday mornings once carried a quiet rhythm, the steady hiss of the iron, the scent of fresh starch, and the careful hands that pressed each seam flat. In many Black households, ironing was more than a chore. It was a rite that signaled care and pride. Grandchildren learned early how to set the iron's heat for cotton shirts, how to mist collars before smoothing them crisp, and why pleats demanded a patient, practiced touch. Elders insisted that each garment deserved respect, whether it was Sunday best or a weekday uniform. The lesson was simple: when you take care of what you have, it takes care of you longer. Hand-washing delicates followed the same principle. Lingerie, church gloves, and baby clothes were never tossed in with heavy laundry. Instead, they soaked in a basin with mild soap, swirled gently, then laid flat to dry, protected from the harsh spin of the machine. This ritual was not just about tradition. It protected fabrics from stretching, fading, or tearing before their time. Research shows that basic textile care like ironing and gentle washing can extend a garment's life by nearly 30%. That means fewer trips to the store, less money spent, and more memories kept in every shirt and dress. These routines taught more than thrift. They built patience, attention to detail, and a sense of stewardship that carried into other corners of life. Long before the world talked about sustainability, Black grandparents practiced it at the ironing board and the wash basin, quietly making what they had last, sometimes for years, sometimes for generations. Never cosign, not for your cousin, not for your best friend. That warning echoed across kitchen tables and front porches, passed down by elders who had seen too many dreams slip away to a signature. Oral histories tell of a neighbor who lost her car and her credit after vouching for a family member who stopped paying. The lesson stuck. If you cannot afford to give it, do not risk your name. Co-signing a loan does not just gamble with money, it ties your future to someone else's choices. Today, payday lenders advertise quick cash, but hide interest rates topping 300% APR. A single missed payment and a $500 loan can balloon into thousands owed, dragging both the borrower and the cosigner into debt. So the rule became simple: build your own cushion first. Grandparents taught that before buying a new coat or a television, you put something aside for yourself. That habit is now called pay yourself first. Even a hidden jar with a few dollars each week could grow into a $1,000 starter fund. That emergency stash meant a broken water heater or a surprise bill did not have to trigger panic or high-interest borrowing. Studies show that households with just $1,000 in savings are far less likely to fall into a debt spiral after a setback. The discipline to wait, to save before you spend, protected families from the traps of easy credit and hard consequences. In a world pushing buy now, pay later, that old wisdom still shields your future and your peace of mind. Stacks of labeled envelopes once sat in kitchen drawers, each one marked for rent, groceries, light bill, or school shoes. Every payday, cash was sorted by hand, no swipe, no app, just crisp bills tucked away for their purpose. This was the envelope method, a budgeting system that kept families on track long before digital banking. Grandparents counted every dollar, knowing that when the cash in the envelope ran out, spending stopped. There was no safety net for overdrafts. Banks charged an average of $33 each time an account slipped below zero. That penalty could wipe out a week's worth of groceries. The discipline of paying cash, not credit, made impulse buys rare. If the envelope for entertainment was empty, the movie waited until next month. This habit protected families from debt traps and surprise fees, especially when banks offered little grace. Even now, cash-based budgeting finds new life. Apps like Good Budget and You Need a Budget mimic the old envelope system, letting users assign digital dollars to categories. But the lesson is the same. See your money, know your limits, and avoid the silent drain of overdraft charges. Studies show that households using envelope or cash first budgeting spend less on non-essentials and avoid hundreds in bank fees each year. The method is simple, but its impact is lasting, building habits that keep more money in your pocket, not in the bank's hands. Fresh haircuts did not always come from a barber's chair. In many Black households, Saturday afternoons meant a kitchen stool, a towel for a cape, and the steady buzz of clippers handled by a parent or grandparent. Kids learned to sit still while their elders shaped fays and lined up edges, sometimes with nothing more than a steady hand and a pair of drugstore clippers. This was not just about saving a trip to the shop. It was about keeping up appearances when money was tight and options were limited. At $30 a cut in today's dollars, if a family of 4 skips the barbershop or salon every month, they keep $1,200 a year in their own pockets. That is money that could cover a car repair or pad the grocery envelope. Shoes told their own story. When soles wore thin or heels started to split, tossing them was not an option. Grandparents pulled out leather patches and glue, sometimes even a handheld awl, and brought tired shoes back to life. Some neighborhoods had a traveling cobbler who made rounds, but most repairs happened right at home. Keeping a decent pair going for another year meant avoiding the $100 price tag of new shoes. For a family with 2 or 3 children, home resealing and patching could save $250 or more annually. These skills did more than stretch a budget. They taught patience, resourcefulness, and pride in self-sufficiency. Every trim and every mended sole was a small act of defiance against a world that charged more and offered less. The savings stacked up, but so did the lessons, making do, making it last, and making sure the next generation could do the same. A torn seam, a missing button, a snagged hem, none of these meant the end of a garment in a household where sewing and mending were second nature. Grandparents taught that a needle and thread could stretch a wardrobe and a budget. One story still gets told at family gatherings. The time a grandmother saved a wedding dress just hours before the ceremony, patching a tear so neatly that no one could find the repair. That kind of skill was not just for special occasions. Everyday fixes, replacing lost buttons, stitching up split seams in school uniforms, patching the knees of jeans, were as routine as sweeping the porch. For beginners, 3 men's covered most needs, sewing on a button, running a simple straight stitch to close a seam, and ironing on a patch for worn elbows or knees. A sewing kit cost less than a single new shirt, and a few minutes with a needle could save a trip to the store. In today's dollars, families who repair instead of replace save around $800 a year. With the average household spending $3,000 on clothing annually, mending turns small skills into real savings. These lessons carried beyond childhood. Knowing how to fix what you have builds confidence and independence. It is the reason some jackets last decades and why a favorite dress can be passed down instead of thrown away. Each stitch is a quiet act of stewardship, a way of honoring what you own and the hands that taught you to care for it. A car parked in the driveway, hood propped open, was a familiar sight in black neighborhoods from Atlanta to Detroit. Grandparents taught that when something rattled or smoked, you learned to fix it yourself, or you walked. Oil changes were not a mystery. They were a Saturday lesson. A child fetched the right wrench, watched the dark oil drain, and learned to refill without spilling a drop. Checking tire pressure became routine, not just before a road trip, but every month. Air filters, spark plugs, headlights, each part had its moment, each fix its story. The lesson was clear. Do not wait until it breaks down on the side of the road. Preventative care kept old cars running long after the odometer rolled past 100,000 miles, and it built self-reliance. Professional shops charge $80 for an oil change and up to $200 for basic maintenance. AAA estimates that regular shop visits add up to $1,500 a year for a single vehicle. Grandparents knew those dollars were better spent on groceries or school shoes, so the garage became a classroom. A set of tools cost less than a single repair bill, and the knowledge passed down was priceless. Safety mattered too. Jack stands were non-negotiable, and nobody crawled under a car without a second set of eyes nearby. These habits meant fewer breakdowns, fewer surprise expenses, and more confidence for the next generation. The driveway mechanic did not just save money, they built a legacy of self-reliance, one repair at a time. Rows of collard greens, tomatoes, and okra once filled backyard plots behind shotgun houses and city bungalows. Elders bent to the soil at dawn, coaxing harvests from seeds saved in coffee cans or folded wax paper. Gardening wasn't a hobby, it was a shield against high grocery prices and empty shelves. Even a small patch, just a few raised beds or a line of containers along a porch, could yield baskets of beans, peppers, or squash. Cooperative extension offices found that a $50 investment in seeds and soil often returned $600 to $1,200 in produce each year. That is money that stayed in the family, not spent at the store. When the summer's bounty threatened to overwhelm the kitchen, grandparents turned to preserving, blanching green beans for the freezer, stringing peppers to dry, or packing cucumbers in vinegar for pickles that brightened winter meals. Freezing and drying required little more than a pot of boiling water and some patience. No expensive equipment, just know-how passed from hand to hand. Root cellars, pantries, and shelves lined with glass jars became insurance against lean months. Even today, a modest garden and simple storage methods can cut a household's grocery bill by around $1,000 a year. Seed saving was part of the cycle, selecting the strongest pods, drying them in the sun, and tucking them away for next season. This tradition kept costs low and flavors true, connecting each generation to the land and to each other. Growing and storing your own food wasn't just thrift. It was a quiet declaration of independence, a way of ensuring that, come winter, there would always be something to eat. As the year's harvest filled pantries, the table was set for the biggest savor of all, home cooking, where every jar and every memory found its place. A summer kitchen glows with the memory of a grandmother standing over a steaming pot, ladling sweet peaches into glass jars. She called it putting up for winter, lining shelves with preserves that would outlast the season's warmth. In homes where store shelves sometimes ran bare and dollars stretched thin, this was more than tradition, it was insurance. Canning and cooking from scraps turned what others overlooked into next week's meals. Corn cobs simmered for broth, bruised apples became jelly, and leftover greens found new life in hearty stews. Every bit was used, nothing wasted. Today, the numbers tell a stark story. The average American household spends about $5,000 a year on food delivery and restaurant meals, often more than the cost of a used car. Compare that to the USDA Thrifty Food Plan, which estimates a year's worth of groceries for a family at just over $1,000. Grandparents who cooked at home, preserved summer's bounty, and made meals from scraps saved their families nearly $4,000 a year. That's not just pocket change, it's the difference between scraping by and getting ahead. Canning wasn't guesswork. Safe preservation meant following precise steps. Sterilizing jars, using the right pressure for low-acid foods, and checking seals before storing. Guidelines from USDA still recommend processing jars at 240 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, with timing adjusted for altitude and for the recipe. One mistake could mean spoiled food or worse, so elders passed down not just recipes, but strict kitchen discipline. These habits, resourceful, careful, and exact, built more than a pantry. They built a safety net, one jar at a time. Across all 20 skills, one pattern stands out. Self-reliance built not just savings, but resilience. These habits, born from necessity, still shield families from rising costs and economic shocks today. It is proof that practical wisdom outlasts trends, and every dollar saved is a legacy preserved. In a world chasing convenience, real wealth is the knowledge you carry forward. Which skill would you bring back? Let us know in the comments.